Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive.
Excited to be here.
Me too.
Oh,
Um, Today we're going to be looking at a
yes.
really interesting topic that I
Absolutely.
think a lot of our listeners will
Huh.
will find really fascinating. It's something called mind physics,
Mind physics.
and we're going to be exploring this
Yeah.
idea through the lens of OCD.
Okay.
So for all of you out there who are
Right.
really interested in the inner workings of the brain,
Mm-hmm.
how our minds work, and how we
Hmm.
can potentially manage conditions like OCD
Right.
through the power of our
I
minds,
think this is going to be really
this deep dive is for you.
interesting.
Yeah, so to guide us through this exploration, we're going to be looking at excerpts
Yes.
from the book Brain Lock by Jeffrey M. Schwartz.
Brain Lock. Fantastic book.
Have you read this?
Yes, I have.
Look-
It's a classic for a reason.
Okay, great.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
as I mentioned, we're focusing on OCD today.
Okay.
Can you give us a little bit of a background on what OCD is and how it affects people?
Yeah. OCD stands for Obsessive Compulsive Disorder. And it's a condition where people experience these recurring unwanted thoughts
Mhm.
and urges, which we call obsessions. And these obsessions drive them to engage in repetitive behaviors that we call compulsions.
Okay, so like the classic example is
Exactly.
someone who's constantly washing their hands.
Washing their hands or checking things repeatedly
Right.
or having to arrange things in a very specific way.
Got it.
So these behaviors, they're not enjoyable. They're actually really distressing.
Right.
But the person feels like they have to do them
Like they can't
to relieve the anxiety caused by the obsessions.
Yeah. So Brain Lock
Hmm.
delves into this idea of mind physics as a way to
Yes.
potentially
Yes.
manage OCD. Can you explain what that concept means?
Sure. So mind physics in this context is the idea that our thoughts and mental actions
Okay.
can actually have a real physical impact on our brains.
So it's like mind over matter, but on a
Yeah.
neurological level.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. It's the idea that we can actually rewire our brains
Wow.
by changing our thoughts and behaviors.
That's fascinating. Okay, so how does this
Yeah.
relate specifically to OCD?
So the book focuses on this part of the brain called the caudate nucleus, which is involved in processing information and regulating our movements.
Mhm.
And in people with OCD, the caudate nucleus is thought to be kind of overactive or sticky.
Sticky. What do you mean by
Well, imagine like a gear shift in a car. If the caudate nucleus is working properly, the gears shift smoothly from one thought to the next.
Right.
But with OCD, it's like the gears get stuck.
Oh, I see.
Thoughts get stuck in a loop, and that's what leads to those obsessive thoughts and compulsive urges.
So it's like their brain is literally getting stuck.
Exactly, and that's why Dr. Schwartz uses the term brain lock.
Brain lock. Okay, so how does mind physics come in to
Oh,
unstick those gears?
That's where those 4 steps come in. The 4 steps are really the core of Dr. Schwartz's approach.
Okay, I am definitely intrigued. Let's dive into those 4 steps.
All right, let's do it. Welcome back. It's great to be diving back into this fascinating world of mind physics with you.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying this conversation. We left off talking about the 4 steps that Dr. Schwartz outlines in Brain Lock for managing OCD.
Right, relabeling, reattributing, refocusing, and revaluing.
Exactly,
Yeah.
those 4 steps. Now I'm really curious to hear more about how those steps actually play out in real life. Are there stories of people who've used this method to successfully manage their OCD?
Oh, absolutely. The book is full of incredible stories of people who have used these steps to transform their lives. For instance, there's a woman named Dottie who had an intense fear of the numbers 5 and 6.
5 and 6, that's such a specific fear. What did that look like for her?
It was really debilitating for her. She would avoid anything with those numbers on it. Like she wouldn't drive on streets with those numbers in the address.
Wow. So even just everyday life was really difficult.
Oh, absolutely. Even simple things like going to the store or checking the mail could trigger intense anxiety for her.
So how did she use the 4 steps to manage that fear?
Well, the first step, relabeling, was crucial for her. She had to learn to recognize those thoughts about 5 and 6 as just that, thoughts. They weren't facts, they weren't truths, they were just symptoms of her OCD.
So instead of thinking, oh no, there's a 5, I need to get away, it was more like, okay, I'm having a thought about the number 5. That's my OCD talking.
Exactly. It's about separating yourself from the thought, observing it without judgment.
Right. And then the second step, reattributing, that's where she connects that thought to the OCD, right?
Exactly. She reminds herself, this isn't me, this is my OCD, this is just my brain getting stuck.
And that shift in perspective, that must be so powerful.
It is. It helps to take the blame and the shame out of the equation.
Right, because it's not your fault. It's a
Of
medical
course.
condition.
Exactly. And then the third step, refocusing. That's where Dottie would actively shift her attention away from those thoughts about 5 and 6.
So what would she do to refocus?
Well, she had always loved to draw and paint, so she started carrying a sketchbook with her everywhere she went. And whenever those thoughts about 5 and 6 popped up, she would take out her sketchbook and start drawing.
That's such a great idea.
Yeah.
It's like channeling that nervous energy into something creative and positive.
And it worked for her. It gave her something else to focus on besides those numbers.
And the fourth step, revaluing.
Hmm.
That's where she reminds herself that her life is so much more than just those numbers, right?
Exactly. She focuses on her values, her relationships, her passions. She reminds herself that she is a valuable person worthy of love and happiness regardless of those intrusive thoughts.
It's like reclaiming her identity and her worth.
Exactly. It's about realizing that those thoughts don't define her.
That's so inspiring. Okay, so we've got Dottie's story. What about other examples? Are there other people in the book who found success with these steps?
Oh, yeah, definitely. There's Brian, who had this compulsion to scrub streets clean of battery acid.
Battery acid. That's such a specific and unusual compulsion.
It was. He would spend hours driving around looking for traces of battery acid after car accidents. He felt like it was his responsibility to clean it up.
Wow, that sounds really tough. How did he use the 4 steps to manage that?
Well, for him, one of the most helpful things was using a visual reminder of his brain scan.
His brain scan.
What do you mean? He actually carried around a copy of his PET scan, and whenever he felt that urge to scrub, he would take it out and look at it.
Why the brain scan?
It was a powerful way for him to remember that those urges weren't rational. You know, the scan showed that overactivity in his caudate nucleus, that brain lock we talked about.
So it was like visual proof that it was the OCD talking, not him.
Exactly, and that helped him to separate himself from the urge and see it as a symptom, not a personal failing.
I see. And then how did he refocus his attention?
Well, Brian was a really caring person. He loved helping others, so he started volunteering at a local soup kitchen.
That's wonderful. So instead of scrubbing streets, he was serving meals to people in need.
Exactly, and that sense of purpose and connection really helped him break free from those compulsions.
That's such a beautiful example of how helping others can be so therapeutic for ourselves, too. It's like a win-win.
Absolutely. And Brain Lock really emphasizes this point, finding activities that resonate with your values, things that give you a sense of fulfillment, not just distraction.
Okay, so we've got Dottie, we've got Brian. Any other stories that come to mind?
Well, there's Domingo, who had this really terrifying obsession with razor blades. He felt like he had razor blades under his fingernails, and he was constantly afraid of hurting people.
Oh, wow, that sounds really distressing.
It was incredibly isolating for him. He was afraid to be around other people, especially children, because he was so afraid of accidentally hurting them.
How did he manage that?
For Domingo, the reattributing step was really key. He spent a lot of time learning about the neuroscience behind OCD, and that helped him to realize that those thoughts weren't his fault. They were the result of a chemical imbalance in his brain.
So it's like that knowledge gave him a sense of power over the OCD.
It did. It helped him to see herself as someone deserving of help and support, not someone to be feared or ashamed of.
I can see how that would be incredibly empowering.
Yeah.
Okay, so he reattributed those thoughts to the OCD.
Yeah.
And then what about refocusing? What did he do to shift his attention?
Domingo found a lot of solace in nature. He loved gardening and spending time outdoors. So he would spend hours tending to his plants, and that helped him to calm his mind and connect with something bigger than himself.
That's beautiful. So nature can be so healing and grounding.
It can. And for Domingo, it was also a way to express his creativity and nurture something beautiful.
And then the final step, revaluing.
Yeah.
How did Domingo revalue his life?
He started to focus on his relationships with his family and friends. He realized that those connections were what truly mattered in life, not those intrusive thoughts about razor blades.
So it's like he was shifting his priorities away from the OCD and towards the things that brought him joy and meaning.
Exactly. And that shift in perspective made a huge difference in his life.
This is all so powerful. I'm really starting to understand how these 4 steps can be so effective in managing OCD. But I'm also curious about the role of acceptance in this process. It must be really hard to accept that you have OCD.
It is. Acceptance is a huge part of the journey, and it's not about giving up or resigning yourself to a life controlled by OCD. It's about acknowledging the reality of the condition and choosing to actively engage with it.
So it's about saying, okay, this is something I have,
Yeah.
but it doesn't have to define me. I can learn to manage it.
Exactly. And that shift in perspective can be incredibly freeing.
It makes sense.
Yeah,
Like you're
yeah.
taking back your power. You're not letting the OCD control you. You're choosing to actively engage with it and manage it.
Right. And that's where the real healing can begin.
These stories are all so inspiring. They really highlight the resilience of the human spirit and the power of the mind to overcome challenges. But Brainlock doesn't just focus on these success stories, does it? It also talks about the reality that managing OCD isn't always easy.
You're right. It acknowledges that recovery isn't always linear. There will be setbacks. There will be days when those intrusive thoughts and compulsions feel more powerful than ever.
So what does it suggest for those times when you feel like you're losing ground in your fight against OCD?
It emphasizes the importance of self-compassion, recognizing that you're doing the best you can, that having difficult days is okay, and that setbacks are just a normal part of the process.
It's like being kind to yourself and understanding that this is a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly. And it's about remembering that you have tools like the 4 steps to help you navigate those rough patches.
So it's not about being perfect. It's about persistence, about continuing to practice these techniques even when it's tough.
You got it. And it's also about reaching out for support. The book highlights how crucial it is to have a strong support system, a therapist, family, friends, support groups, people who can offer encouragement and guidance when you need it most.
It's like having a team to help you get through those challenging moments.
Yeah.
What a powerful message. I was starting to see how mind physics is about so much more than just managing OCD. It's about cultivating a whole new way of being in the world, more present, more aware, more compassionate towards ourselves and others.
Yes. It's about recognizing that our minds have incredible power to shape our experiences, to heal our brains, to create lives that are aligned with our values and desires.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation. I feel like we've only just scratched the surface of this fascinating world of mind physics.
There's always more to discover. But hopefully this deep dive has sparked your curiosity and inspired you to explore further.
It definitely has for me. I think the biggest takeaway is that we are not powerless. We have more control over our thoughts, feelings, and ultimately our lives than we realize. All right, welcome back to our deep dive into mind physics.
It's great to be back.
Yeah, so we've been talking about how these powerful principles can be used to understand and manage OCD. But it sounds like it's not just about OCD, right?
No, not at all. It's really about harnessing the power of our minds to create positive change in any area of our lives.
Okay, so how can we apply these principles, these 4 steps, to everyday challenges, even if we don't struggle with OCD?
Well, think about it. Relabeling, reattributing, refocusing, revaluing. These aren't just for managing OCD. They're tools for working with any difficult thought or emotion.
So like if I'm feeling stressed out.
Exactly. You can use the relabeling step to just acknowledge, okay, this is stress. I'm feeling stressed right now.
It's like taking a step back from the feeling.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then you can use the reattributing step to say, okay, where is this stress coming from? Is it work? Is it my relationships? Is it something else?
Right. It's about getting to the root of the problem.
And once you've done that, you can move into the refocusing step. What can you do to shift your attention away from the stress?
Go for a walk.
Exactly. Or listen to music, meditate, spend time with loved ones, anything that helps you to relax and recharge.
And then revaluing, that's about putting things in perspective, right?
Exactly. It's about reminding yourself what's truly important in life.
Your values.
Your goals.
Exactly. It's about focusing on the bigger picture.
I love that. So it's like these 4 steps are a roadmap for navigating any challenge in life.
They can be.
Mm-hmm.
And it all comes back to neuroplasticity, the brain's amazing ability to change and adapt.
It's like we have the power to shape our own brains.
We do.
Yeah.
And the more we understand how our minds work, the better we can use that power to create the lives we want.
This has been such an incredible conversation. I feel like I've learned so much about the power of our minds.
Me too. And I hope our listeners feel the same way.
I think the biggest takeaway is that we are not powerless. We have more control over our thoughts, feelings, and ultimately our lives than we realize.
And that's a really empowering message.
It is. So to everyone listening, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into mind physics.
It's been a pleasure.
And remember, you have the power to change your mind. Keep exploring, keep learning, and we'll see you on our next deep dive.